ProWrestlingSheet.com.
I want to jump right into a few things here. First, I know you guys are in the lucha mask here, so I don't know but I can reveal your actual identities. These are the filmmakers of the movie, David Darg and Price James of You Cannot Kill David Arquette, and that lovely dog right there. What's that dog's name?
This is Kodak.
And Kodak as well. But I want to know initially, what drew you guys to this story initially, the redemption story of David Arquette in wrestling. I feel like it's not something that a lot of people would have expected to have happened. So, what made you guys want to document this whole thing?
Well, first of all, like you said, it's a redemption story. So it's a dream anytime you have the opportunity to make that kind of film. And then as filmmakers, the opportunity to do something that hasn't been done before, like make a wrestling film that's actually a wrestling film, was really excited for us. And so, and then to tell David's story is a dream come true. I mean, he's such a wonderful, beautiful guy. And we didn't know if he was going to be able to accomplish what he set out to do. So there was a lot of what ifs at the beginning. But we took the gamble and it all paid off.
He went 100% into it, without David Arquette, there would have been no film. His commitment, and he proved it. It was 2 years of training, and we were there, along for the ride. And obviously, we crafted something that kind of lent into a bit more genre and entertainment, but it's all his story. And we think it's like sort of a very unique tale, hero's journey.
Absolutely. I think that, when I was watching it, one of the things that I felt in watching it was that even though it's something that hardcore wrestling fans will respect when watching it and learn something from it as well about, your journey into wrestling both times, I think additionally, like, it does lend itself to the outside wrestling audience as well, like the mainstream audience who just knows David Arquette from all the movies that he's been in and stuff, and just his career as well. So I think you guys did a great job of telling the story that hardcore wrestling fans can appreciate, but that people outside the wrestling world can appreciate as well. I'm assuming, based on your lucha masks, that you guys were wrestling fans growing up as well?
As kids, man, yeah. I mean, in the late 80s, sort of the Hogan Ultimate Warrior eras, 89 to 91 for me. I know I met Darg when we were 8 years old, man. So we were childhood wrestling fans, kind of, drifted away a little bit in our teenage years. We were in punk bands and just being raucous kids. And then during filming, we just fell in love with it. Also just like David's energy for it was kind of infectious, and everyone along was just so interesting, so eccentric, so colorful. The world is amazing. And especially for two Brits where we didn't really get it, it's like kind of a sort of us leaning into that fantasy. It was a dream come true, mate.
Totally. Now, David, did you contact David and Price about doing the movie, or did they contact you? Because I know it's something that you were already kind of thinking about doing. Did you contact them because you wanted them to document the whole thing?
Actually, I went to Bryn Mooser, who's started XTR, and I went to him first, and he really thought it was a great idea, and he and David Darg started a company called Riot together. So we all decided. Then he brought David in. David brought Price James in. I always get that messed up. Sorry,
hey, I'm
dyslexic. It happens all the time. I've been doing press for so many days now, and I just keep messing it up.
Early in the movie, you talk about how you felt like your involvement with wrestling the first time around may have hurt your acting career a little bit. It's kind of talked about by your wife. Were you worried that the same thing might happen in doing this documentary at all, in doing it again?
Well, showing my mental health struggles, maybe. But no, I really don't blame wrestling, to be honest, for like career dips. Like Hollywood's a rough game, and it's all.
It was the AT&T commercials that really did it.
Yeah, those really were the ones that got me. That and several drunken videos out and about. But I literally did it to do a love letter to wrestling, to sort of just prove myself to the wrestling fans. And what I learned throughout it all was that it really is about the fans. It's about this connection that you have with them. And it's about the family that all the wrestlers and the fans, this whole world of wrestling becomes.
Did it frustrate you? Because you talk about it in the movie a little bit, you know, and it kind of seems like it influenced a little bit in your decision in getting back into wrestling, is that you kind of weren't accepted in the wrestling family because people didn't know everything about what you had done in WCW. Like, was it frustrating that, you know, legends of the industry, like, you know, or people like a Brian Knobbs, where they were, you know, that you had heat, they had heat with you almost. They were mad at you to a certain degree over something that you were doing to essentially promote a movie back in the day. Was it frustrating that you were kind of like an outsider in the wrestling world?
It was frustrating, more so because I love wrestling. I love going to the matches, and I went to a match with my wife, and people were being so mean to me. And she's like, I can't believe you, like, put up with that or can deal with that. Like, why do you even, like, come to these things? And that's kind of what it was about. Like, I kind of, like, I don't know, when I'd watch wrestling, I wouldn't be as, like, I'd be depressed about it. But the thing I also learned throughout making this, that things on the internet that you read that are, or whatever, people putting you down, they only really hurt when you believe them. And you're like, you know, it's really, you're hurting inside. So it's all about that inner healing. Like, I know it sounds so corny. I'm going around promoting a wrestling movie and talking about you have to love yourself, but you really do. You have to love yourself.
No, but totally. I mean, that makes sense. And honestly, that's one of my favorite things. One of the other kind of like recurring themes throughout the movie that I really enjoyed by the end of it was almost you feeling more comfortable with everything. You know, you feeling, you know, like you could just do what you want, you know, that you could just be yourself and be around the people that you want to be around and do the things that you want to do. And honestly, that was one of the things I got a little sad. You know, I got a little teary-eyed at the end because I know what it's like to try and get all your friends and all your family to get into wrestling, and they all think they're like, you're involved in it. Like, you like this childhood thing that it's like, why do you still like this? You're an adult. Why do you still do this? And I liked that by the end of the movie, your wife was involved in it. Your friends were there. Like, you had convinced everybody that this is something that they should appreciate too. And I really respected that.
Thank you. They should. It's a really fun sport, and it's something that, like, you just have to watch it a couple weeks and get the sort of storyline going and pick a few characters that you like and just get on board, because it's really fun. And I mean, people are so quick to write off wrestling. It's just like this or that, but it really has a lot more to offer.
Totally. Now, Dallas, it's interesting for me, you know, with your role in the movie, because, you know, you're one of the people who got to be involved in David's journey into wrestling both times, you know, and with the first time in WCW not being remembered by fans as necessarily the best thing. What did you think when he approached you while doing this documentary of, you know, saying that he was going to get properly trained this time?
I want to go back to what you guys said in the beginning about being a redemption film. And it is so, and not knowing how it's going to end, because you don't know. Like, when we started the resurrection of Jake the Snake, like, no one thought I could help him redeem his life. And it was a group of people that really got behind it and really made it. Next thing you know, he's going in the Hall of Fame 18 months later. So anything's possible. And that's always what I go with. So I'm never going to say, like, when David came to me first, I was thinking, bro, I don't know, you know, like, maybe you should just leave it alone, you know. But the more I talked to him about it, the more passion I saw in him. It's not like I want to go out there and win. I want to go out there and pay the dues that I didn't pay the first time. Because literally, I'm the guy that told him, tonight they're going to make you the world champion. And you have to understand, that's like our Oscar. Take winning the world championship out of the picture. Because reality, I don't want to spoil this for anybody, but wrestling is predetermined. Like, storylines. It's storylines. But it really comes down to who are the people getting behind? Who's selling the action figures and getting the Q rating, and who's got the highest number in that quarter hour? Like, when the people get behind you. And when Vince Russo and Eric Bischoff first told me, because I go up, I want to know what the finish is tonight. It's going to be, I don't even know, I find out my match is going to be me and David against Jeff Jarrett, who I'm in a real feud with, and Eric Bischoff. And when they tell me that tonight we're going to put the title on Arquette, And I just laughed.
Yeah.
And I go, what's the finish? They go, no, he's going over. I go, oh, stop fucking with me. Just tell me. What I got a lot of shit to do. Go, so can you just tell me? I got a lot of experience in that ring. Tell me what the finish is. And then they finally said, like, listen, he's going over. It's going to be really good for us. It's going to give us another boost like Malone did. When I wrestled with Karl Malone against Rodman and Hogan, it was the second biggest pay-per-view in the history of wrestling. And then we did something with Jay Leno. Me and Jay Leno against Bischoff and Hogan did big numbers again. But we didn't make those guys the world champion. And when I told David, he was like, we were walking at the time. I'll never forget it. He stopped. He looked up at me and he goes, no. Well, no, really. I go, no, dude, they're putting you over tonight. You're going to be a champion. He goes, no, they can't do that. Like, he's being a fan. He respects what we do. He goes, they can't do that. I go, listen, here's the deal. It's a soap opera. They're picking you tonight to wear the strap. How are we going to do that? I go, it'll be whoever wins the match is the world champion. You'll beat Eric Bischoff. And that's how it'll go. And it really like dumbfounded him for a while. Like, cause am I ribbing him? You know, but he realized, no, I'm not. I'm not. And then being the actor that he is, he snapped out of it. He goes, okay, I'm going to be the world champion. And he took it in like he would take in any role. Now, I knew it was not going to be good, but I never believed it would have come across with the heat that it did. And I would end up for the last 20 years, like telling people who, like, this guy really is, you know? Mm-hmm. Because, like, no, not one of the nicest human beings I've ever met. No, he didn't want to be the world champion. Oh, he gave the money that he made on the match to Melanie Pillman. Brian had just died like a year before. And I go, that's who he is. And when he told me that, you know, this idea, I didn't really see it, you know, to be honest. But when I saw him putting the work in and putting the ring in his backyard and not just going to go out there and play around, he did some shit that I would watch on the internet. I go like, wow, like, that looks pretty good. Like, he didn't just learn that, like the crazy shit where he almost got killed with those crazy death matches, and that shit was just crazy stupid. But it was another thing of earning respect. And Cody Rhodes is the guy in AEW back on TNT. Cody was like my nephew. When I told him what David was doing, he goes, you know, people from our generation, and Cody's 35 now, people from our generation grew up on Ready to Rumble and loved that fucking movie. So he had like zero heat with those people. Yeah, it was the people from before. And it finally, I mean, if you knew the abuse that I've gone through from being in that, and I would always stick up for him, like, fuck you, you're wrong. He didn't want to do it. You know,
I mean, totally. And I'd written down here, you know, in my notes here, because you are the guy who had defended David Arquette more than anyone, you know, in the years that followed, in terms of like, hey man, like, he was just doing what he was told to do. Like he didn't want to do it, all that kind of stuff. Did it surprise you though? Did it surprise you to see that this time around he was so much more accepted by the wrestling community?
I was there a couple of times and I saw it, and I felt so good because he's doing it. Him finding redemption with these fans. Wrestling fans are the greatest fans ever. Because, I mean, I just was, I'm in friggin' doing a glamping thing because I'm not doing the camping thing. So my girl Paige, like, I just did a video. I don't know if you saw it, David, or not, but I'm outside lighting fire. I'm lighting fire, and Paige comes up with the camera. What are you doing? I'm lighting a fire. We were living in the wilderness. You know, she goes, wilderness? And I got up, and she goes, wait a second. Is there a king-size bed in this tent? Is there a bathroom? Is there a shower? Is there a heat? Yeah, that's how I go glamping. But the bottom line is I ran into a bunch of guys around your age, bro, that all grew up watching wrestling, and 4 of them, it was like a really big deal. And that quote where they may not remember what you did or what you said, but they remember the way you made them feel. And that's what wrestling is. That's why today, you know, that like my autograph goes in, you know, in picture for $60. Like, what? If you'd have told me that back in '97, I'd say you were crazy. But people want to have a piece of it. And David coming out and having the balls to do this was a big deal. I thought him and you guys freaking getting behind him and telling that story. I thought it was like you said it earlier. If you like documentaries, fuck wrestling. It's kind of like Resurrection of Jake the Snake. It's about 3 wrestlers, but it has nothing to do with wrestling. This has a lot to do with wrestling, but it doesn't. And I think if you love documentaries the way I do, I'm going to watch that. I'm going to be pulled in and go like, wow, that was a great flip.
Yep. So RJ, you know, you're around the same age as me. Is that kind of what made you want to get involved in David's journey so early on like you did? Because you were kind of one of the people that jumped on it real early, I felt like.
I didn't know shit about a documentary being made. David followed me on Twitter because a friend of him was a fan of mine and said, David, you should follow this guy. He followed me. He started responding to all my tweets. I took issue with it. To be honest with you, I'm a bigger fan of David's father and his grandfather than I am of David. I much rather it was Oliver Platt winning the WCW title instead of David. That's just me. But so I do that thing every Sunday morning on YouTube where I make coffee in my underwear, and I decided I'm going to have fun and I'm going to call him out because he seems like a fun guy, not knowing any of this business. Next thing I know, he makes another video calling me out, and we keep going back and forth, and his sister gets involved because his sister thinks it's real. And then we met in New Orleans, WrestleMania weekend. We finally met, and he was nice enough to have coffee in his underwear with me, and we talked about a lot of stuff. And he said, hey, I'm getting this together, and talked about a lot of different options, and this feud kept building because it was a great hobby being mean to him on Twitter. I enjoyed it tremendously. And then all of a sudden it was
You're
like,
good at that.
Yeah, it was in July 2 years ago. He said, Hollywood, let's do it. I was like, okay, that's a little soon. I don't think you're fully trained. And he said, no, like, we're going to do it. I think we can make this work. And then lo and behold, I get there to meet him. It's just a couple days before the match. And I get to the house and I'm like, Christina, where is he? It's like, oh, he's just getting home from Mexico. And he comes out of the van holding his ribs and he can barely breathe. And he winces when he coughs. And I'm like, well, we're fucked. What are we going to do? So, and then the match was like, how do I get the match that we want to have with a guy, you know, there's no rope running. He's not hitting the turnbuckles. There's no back bumps. Like, you want to make this work, but also don't want to kill him at least too much because obviously you can't kill him, to be fair. And then we put together a match that had a lot of throwbacks. And the first move he gets, the big desperation move, is the diamond cutter. Because that would obviously be the one thing he knows. You know? And DDP, and it's so perfect that DDP is really like this mythic mentor on the beach.
I love that.
Like you come out of the ocean. It's amazing. Also, I must say, I must fawn over DDP. He is the king of the ultimate miracle run in wrestling. In terms of when you started really wrestling in the ring, what were you, 35?
35 and a half, yeah.
That's still unheard of.
That's insane.
That's totally insane. And now, I mean, there's a lot of older guys in the business because they learned how to extend their bodies. And DDP was the first guy to figure that out. and he's still in better shape than everyone else, which is fantastic.
Like I turned 34 tomorrow, and I could not imagine in a year from now starting a Hall of Fame worthy wrestling career. Like that sounds impossible. That sounds insane, like insane.
Or it sounds like another documentary.
Hey,
you could probably kill Ryan Satin. I think it's a funny title for a documentary. And then also,
I'm not as tough.
We put these little throwbacks in our match where he also does Scorpion Deathlock, and at the end he goes for the big double axe handle, which is Jimmy the King's move. So,
which I love. I was at the match, and I remember when he went to do that, I marked out so hard. I was like, oh my God, he's going to hit him with it. Oh my God, like he's going to hit him with the crown. Like, yeah, hell yeah. So yeah, no, you guys did a great job at that match too, because I remember being at that match, watching David wrestle, being impressed with the match that you two had, and then it not coming out. I want to say it came out right after on TMZ that you had been in Mexico and had been injured prior to the match, right? Like it didn't get known that injury happened until after the match. And I remember even I was surprised. Like I was like, wow, he did a great job for being injured during that match. So yeah, you guys really, it was impressive, that match, for the little time that you guys had and for the stuff that you guys had holding you back during it. And I love in the in the movie that it shows the the TMZ press that you guys had in the media and all the attention that it was getting. It's funny, as much as people hate on David's foray into wrestling, every time he does it, it's this huge newsworthy thing, which I also love. Like he, one of the worst moments ever, but everyone talks about it. Like every wrestling fan remembers it, and then you dive back in again. And you end up having one of the most violent celebrity wrestling encounters of all time, when you went up against Nick Gage. Just like, how did that feel after, I was there for that match too. And I just remember the difference between the RJ City match and the Nick Gage match, where it was just like, we're at Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, like a family-friendly environment. Everyone's having a good time. Like you're doing your thing. You got the throwback stuff, and then we go to this to this Nick Gage match with GCW, and it's a very different environment. It's a dark room. There's just like people on top of each other wanting to see someone bloody. What made you even? What I know we talked about it right before you did the match. So I now all this time later. In retrospect, did you get what you wanted out of doing that death match with Nick Gage?
I guess I did. I mean, it's complicated. Price James and David Darg sort of constructed it so we started sort of from backyard wrestling because we did want to honor that. It was something that was kind of just starting to be big when I did my first run. And a lot of the wrestlers and fans that are now fans had come up with that and knowing that and loving that. So we wanted to explore it. I didn't really know we were doing, but they brought me there and all that stuff. So then the deathmatch thing came up because I was supposed to wrestle Joey Janela the season before or something, the spring before. It didn't work out. And then they were coming to LA Confidential, and Jungle Boy was on the bill. So I was like, I did it. I thought it was more like a hardcore match. I didn't know really the difference with the light tubes, that it was super frowned upon in professional wrestling. They kind of look at that stuff. Well, when it's super dangerous like that, there's reasons why to frown upon it. But I did want to do it, and I was happy with the way it turned out as far as the reaction of the crowd. They were literally booing me when I went in and cheering me when I went out. So that was like in a microcosm, the whole sort of journey. But, do I have regrets about it? Yeah. Would I have done things differently? Absolutely. I pulled his legs. It's what caused the thing to hit me in the neck. I wasn't supposed to, but I was getting upset. And that's just sort of what happened. It was my fault I didn't stick to the plan, but it was still like there was crazy shit going on. So
I loved the deathmatch stuff in the beginning of the movie. That was such a wild scene to see, like very famous David Arquette in a backyard with like teenagers, you know, that are doing like backyard wrestling for the most part. David and Price, you know, what did you guys think going into that? Had you guys had any backyard wrestling experience? Not maybe partaking in it, but like, had you been in a setting like that before?
We'd seen a lot of it because Price and I just kind of weirded into a lot of like weird counterculture stuff. So we watched a lot of backyard videos just for laughs. And we knew it would be an interesting world to explore. And for us, like David said, we felt like David really should start right at the bottom. Like if you're going to work your way up to the top, you've got to start at the bottom and understand what the journey really is. And so that was really the impetus behind him going to Richmond. But I don't think any of us could have anticipated just how raw and sparsely populated that match would be.
So you guys too, then you also you thought there were going to be more people there too when you guys were talking to this promoter?
Yeah, dude. I mean, we thought at least there was 50 to 100, or like he was like, yeah, we'll get at least 50 in there, and then it was 6.
It was when you watch it, like the wrestlers who weren't in the matches.
But David loved it. He was on screen like, man, I'm just here to have fun, you know, and that's what it was all about, you know. But then obviously there was a little turn during the sort of filming, but it was just, you know, like pure love, you know, pure passion, grassroots level. All you could smell was like cow manure, dog shit. It was just like we were in the woods. There was mosquitoes everywhere. I'm getting mosquito bitten now, but like it was chaos, man, and just like real Virginia backwoods kind of real wrestling, you know.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You know, another thing I loved in the movie, David, that you did was the street wrestling in Mexico. As someone who lives close to TJ, you know, I've seen it. I love all that stuff. I love lucha culture and stuff. So that whole scene was maybe one of my favorite scenes in the movie, just because I feel like when you first get there, you can see that you're understandably apprehensive to the whole thing. Like, you're like, am I really here to wrestle in the street? Did you know that that's what you were going to the street because that was the plan when you were going there, that you were going to be doing street wrestling? Or did they spring that on you a little bit?
I didn't even know it existed. I didn't even know that street wrestling was a thing. And then there I am, and I was amazed by these guys. But I thought I was just there to watch and like kind of soak it in. And then they were asking me to get in there and stuff. And then they didn't plan anything. They didn't speak English. So I like kind of gave the guy a full Nelson or something, like hurt his knee. It was like a disaster. I felt so bad. Like, what am I doing? I didn't know like what I was supposed to do. It was just such a.
I mean, that's why I love that scene so much, though, because you can see all that in your face. You're like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, what is happening here? Like, this is fucking. Like, what the fuck have I gotten myself into? I'm in the middle of a street, like asking people for change for wrestling in the street, and I love that scene so much because I love when you then kind of like, you can tell you finally just say, you know what? Fuck it. Like, I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to do it. And you drop it and you just do it. And I love that scene because it's like, it just like got me all pumped. Like, yeah, he's doing it. You know, like I really like that you did that.
Thank you.
Was it cool to get like, you know, your own lucha mask while you were out there in Mexico as well?
Yeah, I had it made. I'd made a bunch. I got a bunch. I had all my gear made on my own and just kind of like, just because I wasn't supposed to go out on the independent circuit. I just knew I had to for myself and for getting better in the ring. And the only way you can do that is by having, you know, experience there. And RJ was so nice to take me, although I owe him an appearance on a late night talk show at some point.
I made a bad deal. I entered into a horrible agreement here. Yeah, he still hasn't paid up on it. But go ahead, please.
But, you know, I learned a lot with him and all that. But I had all this gear made, and one of them was a lucha thing. I was supposed to do Lucha Baboom, but I got injured. So I had brought it, just like, you know, I didn't know what the heck we were doing. I like brought an old wrestling like thing too, and just all this shit. I don't know. So I was just lucky I had it, and then they wouldn't let me have it. Then they saw that I had it. They're like, no, you can't do it. And that's not even on camera. But I was like, oh, I didn't want to offend anybody. Like, I didn't know, like, you're not supposed to make your own mask, or you have to earn a mask or whatever it is. So they were cool about it, and finally, like, said you can wear it. I don't know if they were ribbing me or not, but There's a lot of stuff.
It still ended up being a nice moment in the movie.
You don't know what's going on in wrestling a lot of the time. You don't know half the language that they say. There was even something in the death match. There's something. He's like, this is the part where the ultra violence happens. And I was like, oh,
okay. the common thread.
That ain't no code word.
The common thread with David is that he never quite knows what's going on, yet it never really stops him from jumping fully in and figuring it out.
RJ, just that you could be taking him through this journey in the beginning, you're zoning in on tension deficit disorder, brother, is amazing.
Thank you very much. When I talk to David, he's got like 8 different ideas at the same time. And I'm like, how do we turn this, especially when we team together? I'm like, what do we do with really this 12-year-old boy who is just as excited as he was when he did the Ready to Rumble stuff? And our relationship, there was 2 examples I had when we teamed. It was either Clifford, Charles Grodin and Martin Short in Clifford, and it was like Laurel and Hardy, where his joy is my ultimate misery. And we were, really opposite ends of the spectrum. And in this scenario, teaming with him, I always felt like the old man. I was always the guy saying no. And then, the best part is we'd be doing shows and we'd be in the ring before the match, and his wife would text me saying, please make sure he doesn't get hurt. He's got a movie to do next week. And I would look up at him and he'd go, I think I want to do an Undertaker dive, like over the rope. And I'm like, have you ever done that before? And he's like, no. And I'm like, well, you're not trying it tonight. I'm sorry, but no. It's just such a unique relationship.
Well, honestly, and I think that's why people need to go see this movie. I think that's why they need to download the movie and check it out, because it really is an inspiring tale of somebody just doing what they want to do, following their passion, and really just kind of like living the life that they want to live, regardless of what anyone says. And I think that can resonate with anyone. So I really highly recommend people check this movie out. I want to thank you guys for your time. And make sure you guys go download You Cannot Kill David Arquette. Wherever you download movies, I don't need to list them all. I know you know where to find movies when you're downloading them.
It's on Laserdisc. Get it on Laserdisc. It's great.
VHS, baby.
But really, check it out.
I want to close out with that. I want to put you guys over because I saw in Rotten Tomatoes you got a 92 rating. That's huge. That's huge.
That's really huge.
And as a guy who's been all over the wrestling world, anyone who's out there, whether you like David Arquette or you hated him, you need to watch it because it will definitely enlighten you, for real.
Thanks, buddy.
DDP, legend.
And DDPY is how I started my weight loss. And it gets me ready for all my matches.
No commercial here. Go see You Can't Kill David Arquette because I'm going to kill him later. See ya. Okay, great seeing you, bro.
Good, lovely seeing you.
Thanks, everyone. I appreciate it.
ProWrestlingSheet.com